Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to New Approaches in Theater and Dance, Keeping the Lights On During COVID-19, presented to you by the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of South Carolina. I'm Jody Salter, Director of External Relations for the college. Before we begin, I want to remind you that we have more webinars scheduled in the coming weeks. You can visit go.sc.edu/CASwebinars for more information about those. Today we are discussing the challenges that a pandemic poses for the performing arts, especially in the education and performance of theater and dance. These are the issues that people around the nation are grappling with. So it's not surprising that we have more than 200 people registered for today's event, and we thank you for joining us. We have two speakers today who will talk about these challenges from different perspectives. First, we will hear from Tanya Wideman-Davis. Tanya is the co-director of Wideman-Davis Dance and is on faculty as Associate Professor in the University of South Carolina Department of Theater and Dance and African American Studies. With an extensive career as a dancer, choreographer, and teacher, she completed her Master's of Fine Arts from Hollins University. She has danced with many world-renowned companies, and Dance Europe magazine named her the Best Female Dancer of 2001-2002. Tanya's academic and choreographic research and lectures examine race, gender, femininity, identity, and location. After Tanya speaks, we will hear from Jim Hunter. Professor Hunter is starting his 25th year on the faculty here at the University of South Carolina, and he teaches scenic and lighting design. For 10 years, he served as chair of the Department of Theater and Dance and artistic director for Theater South Carolina. Jim is an active professional scene and lighting designer and is a member of the National Designers Union, United Scenic Artists, Local 829. His designs have been seen at such theaters as the Folger Shakespeare Theater, Theater Virginia, Orlando Shakespeare Theater, Phoenix Theater, Florida Repertory Theater, Arkansas Repertory Theater, VeggieTales Live National Tour, World Stage Exposition in Toronto, Wall Street Dance Works, as well as many others. His designs have been recognized with 2 consecutive Arizona Awards for excellence in scene design. Jim has been active in higher education accreditation for 2 decades and is currently serving the first of 3 years as president of the National Association of Schools Theaters. After Jim's talk, he and Tanya will have a discussion together, followed by a Q&A session. During their talk, they will present different works that they will share with you, and we will be sending you an email with links to those works. You can submit a question at any time through the Q&A button in your Zoom app. Thank you for joining us, and now we will hear from Tanya.
Good Monday afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Am I good? Okay.
Sound great.
So to begin our dialogue today, I'm going to assume the question is, how do you teach movement practices under the constraints of COVID-19? So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to imagine new visions for the program. The dance program faculty is implementing a series of teaching formats, such as 100% web, hybrid, and some face-to-face courses. Each professor and instructor is tailoring their courses to meet the needs of studio practice and academic courses. So the way I'm thinking of this, there's 3 different modes of deployment for the courses in the fall semester. Remote courses will focus on creative and critically interactive assignments. Students will begin the semester using themselves as a site of exploration and expand coursework content and tools into projects. Faculty who are teaching face-to-face and hybrid courses have blocked off studios to create 10-foot squares for each dancer, while leaving room for the instructors and the accompanist. Entrances and exits will also be delineated to minimize cross-passing through narrow doors. This will account for studios, but not the public spaces, and that the dance program can't control. Some courses will meet outside on the band field, outside of the Copenhagen Band Hall. This fall, we're exploring new opportunities to build experimental performances, as well as entry points to think of a dance degree as an interdisciplinary exploration that merges movement with technology and various other arts disciplines. That's so important in the time space that we're in right now. I mean, everything is in flux, everything is fluid, so we gotta think differently about how the fall semester is going to play out. The dance program's faculty concert will be an environmental engagement performance that will be projected on 4 screens within a location on campus. The fall concert really seeks to activate spaces with dance as a means of democratizing who has access to the performing arts, which we all know has been traditionally limited. As a faculty, we are taking steps to create a new narrative. So what do I mean by that? What's the new narrative? Aesthetic equity, new models for creation and sharing, and activating public spaces, addressing who feels invited to dance experience, who does not, and why. Investing in new models for sustainability. So what does that mean? That means equity, diversity, and inclusion. And those are not just container words. I'm like really talking about we have to do the work now. And this time period allows us to think about how to do that work in a really visceral way. COVID-19 provided the entire dance industry with the opportunity to attend to what's been overlooked. So I'll just give you a little bit of information about a professional project that's happening that I will be a part of. The major university presenters, they call themselves MUPs, have created an initiative to commission Black artists to create virtual works with Black musicians. My company, Wideman-Davis Dance, has been asked by the University of Florida to take part in this initiative. So, you know, it's going to be fluid. At this point, I don't know what that's going to look like, but it's really exciting that presenters are thinking about new ways and entry points into creating performative work that is sustainable and supportive. The professional dance industry is having to do an internal audit. And I believe as artists, educators, and humans, we should do the same. During the COVID-19 stay-at-home mandate, I read a lot. And there were a few texts that really informed how I'm thinking about moving forward with my practice. And I just want to show those texts because maybe they can help you too. So the first one is the Undercommons, Fugitive Planning and Black Study. This one is written by Stefano Harney and Fred Moten. I'll give you a close-up. This is an amazing text. And of course, Juking, the Rise of Social Dance Formations in African American Culture. And this one is written by Katrina Hazard Gordon. We should all know who Katrina is. She's an important person in our dance community. And then this one is Design Justice, Community-Led Practices to Build the Worlds We Need by Sasha Costanza Choke. And she's an MIT professor. And this one is just a really interesting text in terms of thinking about oppressive design and how to get out of that. So hopefully people will find those as interesting as I did. And right now I want to turn it over to Jim. So I'll pass the baton.
Thank you, Tanya. So thank you. So the Frank Lloyd Wright said, without restrictions, the more specific the better. Why then trouble the artist? Wright knew that it was the details, the challenges, the things that seem to restrict solutions that are the fuel for creativity. So our programs certainly faced considerable challenges this past spring with a rapid switch from face-to-face to online instruction. And while face-to-face instruction is still greatly preferred by the faculty, due to their creativity, many faculty had surprisingly positive outcomes for certain aspects of their classes. One instance of many is our applied theater class. The community-based final project was just not possible. They could not go out into the community. So they went worldwide instead. The professor reached out to colleagues and came up with a collaborative performance project that ended up with the involvement of 7 different countries: Germany, Greece, the UK, Australia, Singapore, and Togo. And despite all the logistic hurdles, the students did Zoom performances and used the chat box for immediate audience interactive feedback of the performances. So these international perspectives and immediate interactive feedback had created a newly valuable learning experience and unique. So our departments can do creativity as one of our best assets as we drive forward this coming year. And keeping the lights on for our department means that we're trying to provide a high quality education in a safe environment. So how do we overcome the challenges of social distancing using PPE and other COVID-19 procedures while conducting the performances and rehearsals and classes in the theater? We've been researching down a number of avenues on how to move forward. We've been looking at what the live entertainment industry is doing and also what other universities are doing. We'll be sharing these links, as Jody said, at the end of the session. So we have found that some of the unions are providing really helpful publicly shared COVID-19 information, particularly the Directors Guild of America, the Stage Directors Choreography Association, and IATSE, the Stagehands Union. They have really great websites that lead you to a lot of further things. Some of the other unions' websites are a little bit more, you have to log into. So professional theaters are working with unions developing COVID-19 safety plans, and many of them may share these plans, so you should look out for that as you look forward into the fall. I think it'll be coming out soon. We reviewed a draft of such a plan, and it was quite exhaustive and very informative to our decision making. So our fall productions. We are planning an all online process for both of our fall main stage productions. This allows students not returning to campus the opportunity to audition for and participate in these productions. And it also allows for the productions to continue uninterrupted if conditions on campus require the university should go full-time online again. So our first production will be Love and Information. This play incorporates many small scenes with a range of 1 minute to 3 minutes with about 100 characters that are played by a small cast. It's well suited for Zoom and online productions. We're going to have our auditions, rehearsals, and performances all online. There will be 4 live performances using Zoom webinar. And our intention is to rehearse the show in a way that replicates the normal rehearsal process as close to possible. So there can be quite long, extensive rehearsals, 2-hour rehearsals like normal. The director is not interested in making a movie. and there will not be a recording of any kind made of the process. They will be exploring the possibility of using technology to bring several characters together as if they're in one same room, which I think can be done on Zoom, and they're working on that. And excuse me. Oh, there we go. Exploring the possibility of using technology, because each actor will also become a technician, switching up furniture and properties and possible backgrounds and the like, perhaps moving the actor's laptop to different locations to view new camera angles between scenes. Costumes may come partially from the actors, but also may be mailed to them from the department, as well as any other properties or scenic elements that need to be needed. So that, and the creative use of practical light sources is also planned. Our second show is She Kills Monsters. So She Kills Monsters is a drama comedy that takes place in the real world and in the world of Dungeons and Dragons. The play's popularity for college and productions across the country has featured in the article last week, July 2nd, in the New York Times. This original script was specifically rewritten by the playwright to allow for online presentation. Our current plan is to record the Zoom performances. We expect that there'll need to be some editing, especially to make the most of fight sequences between gamers and monsters, and for other effects like shadow plays that occur during the story. Then the pre-recorded show will be streamed on demand at 6 specific showtimes. The design team's discussions have been ongoing, and they haven't decided everything yet, but we do expect the use of either green screen technique or physical scene drops or some environments or both behind the actors. Costumes may come partially from the actors, but certainly some will be mailed to them from the department, including monster elements if these are not going to be CG, as well as other needed items might be sent, like other properties, weapons, and the like. Spring. We hope to have live theater experiences in some form for our students in the spring. Our first project is the complete works of Shakespeare abridged. This is all 37 plays in 97 minutes. 3 actors play all the parts. It's madcap, audience interactive, it's pure fun. So we hope to have auditions and rehearsals face-to-face. The rehearsal process will use social distancing that will require face coverings in most situations, but we're also looking to stage the show with extra space and expansive space. So there may be times when no face coverings will be appropriate, and possibly also use of costume design character masks to be used on stage. Will also be COVID a mask. We hope to perform in front of live audiences, and we're strongly considering this as an outdoor production. We expect audiences to socially distance with blankets and lawn chairs. We hope the performances can be happening on campus and also in the Columbia area, somewhere off campus. And we're also looking into taking day tours out to communities or schools beyond the Columbia area. Our last show of the main season is You and the Moors Now. This is sort of a hilarious adventure that features major characters from Little Women, Pride and Prejudice, Jane Eyre, and Wuthering Heights. Well, again, we're hoping for face-to-face auditions and rehearsals. And while considering an outdoor production, there is a desire to produce indoors, even if significantly reduced social audience distance audiences. So social distancing, I think in our main theater will reduce it from something like 440 to somewhere around 60. So we're also exploring perhaps streaming to the broader community if we do the show in the main proscenium theater. The director's not been announced, and this will certainly affect our approach to the show. And we hope by the time production planning was fully underway that we'll have all the necessary COVID-19 protocols established for indoor performances, including the audience area, on stage and backstage. And we're using these professional theater standards to come up with this protocol. Also, next summer of 2021, we have a special event we're producing. This is the USC Excellence Initiative, the Shakespeare Festival Stage. This is a co-production of A Midsummer Night's Dream with the Folger Shakespeare Theater and the National Building Museum, both in DC. The show will be a long-term installation in the National Theater building's massive lobby, and the play itself will run about a month. The project will involve University of South Carolina students on this professional production, and hopefully we will have a fall 2021 production here of the show after coming off the run in DC. Let's see, we're developing extensive new protocols for the scene, costume, and lighting and sound shops to support productions. One of the biggest challenges, for instance, for the scene shop will be keeping appropriate social distance while constructing and repainting scenery. The scene shop has so many different processes like cutting materials, welding, assembly of large structures, and the like. So social distancing will certainly be possible, but it will take considerable planning. So all of our normal operations that we take for granted will take considerably more time for planning and execution. So the process for mounting the show is going to be considerably changed in the future, including things like cleaning surfaces and tools regularly, training, special COVID-19 training for everyone who enters the shops. And we are very lucky to have a very large scene shop to allow for all this distancing. The costume shop is developing the same kinds of procedures that are quite detailed. They're very concerned because they have a lot of very close interaction with the actors and fittings and the like. Because of this, the process will take considerably more time to allow for things like when a costume arrives at the shop, it'll be quarantined for 48 hours, then it'll be cleaned, then it'll be worked on by the seamstress staff with all the proper PPE and other precautions, and then it'll be quarantined again for 40 hours before fitting with the actor. So these kind of things are going to really make the costume shop operations quite complicated. The costume shop is going to be rearranged to allow for social distancing, adding plexiglass shields installed between stations, machines, and machines will be assigned to specific graduate students. So the costume shop is pretty clear on the fact that the pandemic will most likely change how much we work with the actors forever. There will be so much more care, less sharing of makeup and supplies, no double dipping of sponges and brushes, no more sharing of bobby pins. Our classes for the fall, we are planning for some face-to-face, some fully online, and some hybrid. Our fully online classes include theater history, theater appreciation, dramatic literature for youth, drama and education, graduate text analysis. We're going to have 2 sections of beginning acting classes online. Playwriting will be online, film and TV acting. Many of these classes will be taught both synchronously and asynchronously. The playwriting will be synchronous. It'll be like going to class every session. Film and TV acting will be taught both synchronous and asynchronous sessions with the option for in-person one-on-one mentoring on campus. Our accents and dialects course will be taught both synchronous and asynchronous sessions, but also will have the ability to use live coaching and recording on campus. The rest of the classes are face-to-face with some hybrid, with some use of online instruction. All classes will use face coverings at all times. We'll have several sections of beginning acting will be face-to-face. One acting instructor is making use of radio plays. If you can think Abbott and Costello routines, but also these are new plays that are written in the radio format. And the final project will be a partner socially distanced radio play that the students will be playing multiple characters and also doing live sound effects. These projects will be presented live online. Intermediate acting class will be face-to-face. They're going to be studying the just recently closed Old Vic production of Lungs. In that production, they explored using zones and a chessboard, a blocking concept. And the idea would be that the blocking of the show would allow such that you could do a 2 or 3 hand play with enough socially distanced that you would not have to wear masks, but it would seem quite natural in the blocking. So they'll be exploring that technique in intermediate acting. Beginning voice and speech will be face-to-face, most likely on our proscenium stage to allow for 10-foot distancing. Mask will be used, and the instructor is currently researching, trying to find the right type of mask for the face covering that allows the jaw to move more appropriately. So we're still working out some details there. Stagecraft, it'll be in the scene shop. Elements of design for theater production studio will be all face-to-face. Introduction theater will be, one section will be all face-to-face, and another section will be a hybrid accelerated class. Half the class will be face-to-face, the other class online. Lighting design, programming, costume design, scene design, stage management, all of these other those classes, many of them graduate classes, will all be done face-to-face on the campus. So that's what we're planning. And let's bring Tanya back for some questions. Tanya?
Yep, I'm here.
Can I ask you the first question?
Sure.
What do you think dance is going to, in the dance world will look like in 2 years? What's out on the horizon?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. I don't know where it will be, but I can speak to my hopes.
Yep.
And my hope is that the dance industry will begin to dismantle transactional relationships and start to build long-term lasting relationships with artists locally and nationally, to build people back up from this performative hiatus, because people are going to need that support. They're going to need that community support to say, you know what, we're coming back and we're investing in you as a local and national artist to make work now. And I think that that's so important. There's been so many conversations about, you know, going back into the proscenium theaters and how to keep the audience safe. And so my thinking is, you got to go back and think about how the artists are going to rehearse safely, how those artists are going to be in the theater, how they're going to negotiate space in terms of backstage, how the stagehands are going to be safe. There's a whole nother discussion that has to happen before we start thinking about the audience coming in. We got to think about safety and, you know, interactions. Our whole mode of being with each other is going to shift. We're going to have to think about, you know, what does it mean to choreograph a duet? What does it mean to touch a person? What does it mean to be face-to-face with someone and actually breathe the same air? So there's a lot that has to transpire, I think, in terms of us in a very sensorial way, how we're going to react with each other.
There's a lot of discussions going on in the theater community the same way that this is an opportunity for more smaller, community-focused theaters are going to really survive and thrive in the next few years, right? And that's pretty exciting because they're usually more in tune with the communities and the needs of the communities. So we're expecting that. I also hear a lot that the big theaters are going to do fairly well on the other side, and that many of the sort of mid-level theaters will be struggling because of the cost involved in running them. So. And I agree, we're also thinking that lots of actors and lots of creative people are going to be generating new work, just like you're going to be generating new work, right? So I think there's going to be an explosion of that. Jody, are there?
Well, can I just say one more thing before we go to Jody?
Yeah.
So as professors and teachers, we're having to wrap our heads around how these hybrid models of teaching are going to work.
Right.
But really, when we come out of this, we're going to have to think of how our practices, our creative practices, are hybrid creative practices. If we're teaching all of these many different ways of accessing education, we're going to have to think about many different ways of creating experiential performances that may be outside of just the proscenium stage. So when we come out of this, my hope is that we'll have so many different modes of being creative and producing work and the work will actually be situated in different spaces, different creative spaces. So
we've been talking in our end of the department for 20 years about doing outdoor shows on the horseshoe, and
yeah.
finally we're going to start doing it. And I think we're going to find out that it's not going to be it's going to be hard, but it's not going to be as hard as we think it is. And I think it's going to open up a whole new way for us to have outreach. We're going to be a lot less hesitant to jump in the back of the truck and drive somewhere to do a show. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a big change for our unit.
And who's to say that a performance can't happen on the back of a truck?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So Jody, are there any questions from the group?
Hey, there are, and thank you guys for that incredible insight into the immediate future of theater and dance. We actually do have some questions that I want to send your way. First, I just want to say, at first we had a lot of people ask the same questions, and I just want to reiterate, yes, this is being recorded, and we will probably post it on the Theater and Dance website, as well as the College of Arts and Sciences website. We'll be sending each one of our participants an email that will include the titles of the books that Tanya shared, as well as links to the websites that Jim discussed. So I just want to make sure that everyone does know that. The first question is from an anonymous attendee, and it's to Tanya. It says, Tanya, please elaborate more on the environmental engagement concert experience you plan to hold at USC.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question. So the faculty has decided that what we're going to do is we're going to create 4 screens, which will be situated in the pond in front of the library. And each of us will create a 3 to 5 minute sort of movement experience. So there are 4 choreographers that are working, 4 faculty choreographers that are working on what we call Dance 177, our dance performance concert. And we're going to create our individual creative experiential works with our students. And so those will be filmed. So the students will be filming content, professors will be filming content as well. It could be either in a studio if one of those professors that's teaching face-to-face is comfortable with going into the studio and filming in the studio, or it could be in the way that I will be working. I will be asking the students to film themselves the work that we're actually via Zoom creating. We're gonna have a video mapper come in and take that footage and actually map it. So you will have 4 different experiences that will be projected on these screens, and people can just walk up and see, and it'll be on a rotation. So you can come in maybe in the middle of it and then stay, and you can see it 2 or 3 times if you wanted to. So like I was saying, it democratizes these performance experiences so that they're really site-specific works.
Thank you, Tanya. The next question comes from Kelly McCain, and Jim, this is directed to you. Will you also share the titles in your theater season? Thank you.
Titles?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they are. We're doing Love and Information by Carol Churchill. We're doing She Kills Monsters. We're just doing Shakespeare, the complete works of Shakespeare abridged, and then You on the Moors Now. Those are the 4 titles that we're doing on the main stage.
Jim, can we share? We can also share those in the email that we send out along with the
Oh, share them.
Yeah, we can share them as well. But they wanted to hear them now, but we can send them in the email as well.
Oh yeah, sure.
And the next question comes from Maria Macaroni.
Hi, Maria.
Maria asks, while performances are becoming more accessible through virtual outlets, will one still have to purchase the tickets to see the production? If so, will the ticket prices be reduced? She's just curious.
Yeah, so in the fall for our particular performance mode that we're working with, it will be free. And you can just come in and actually decide when you want to watch the performance under the guidelines of when it will actually be projected. There will be a time frame in which the performances will be projected on these 4 different screens. But that's not to say that that will always be the way that we're going to create performances. When things are different, we will go back into the theater. We're just exploring new ways and different ways of being able to engage with performance. And that's where I think this whole interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary idea making can happen in the dance program that previously didn't exist. It's really about just like blowing out the possibilities of what performance can do.
Thank you, Tanya. The next question comes from Lily Cohen. What will dance company and the rehearsal process look like?
So I did a assessment of that a little earlier. And what you'll be doing is you'll be working with the 4 choreographers who are choreographing for 177 to build this virtual experience or this video experience that will be projected on the screens. And you know, you at this point, if you are signed up for Dance 177, then you have the possibility of working with myself, Professor Thaddeus Davis, Andre Mergadishian, or Olivia Waldorf. So those are the 4 professors that will be working on that, and they will be working with you to create something new.
Thank you, Tanya. The next comes from Peggy Bennett, and it's not a question, but a thought. She says, the LA Times recently reminded me that Shakespeare wrote Macbeth, Lear, and Antony and Cleopatra during his quarantine as a result of the plague. She says that I applaud the innovative approaches our faculty are taking with upcoming U of SC theater production and teaching. So compliments to you both and to your colleagues. Lily Cohen has one more question. She wants to know, what will dance company, that's not her next question. Her next question is, will the dance company performances be live streamed or filmed in advance?
For the faculty concert, it will be filmed in advance, and that footage will be taken and by our video mapper. He will take that and actually enliven it so that each actual professor's vision of whatever it is they are creating develops in the way that he is taking this footage and he's morphing it, he's twisting it, he's bringing different perspectives to this video footage. I think there's probably some video content that you can look at online about how performance actually gets video mapped onto a building or onto a video screen, so that these are site-specific performative works that if you haven't heard of or haven't seen footage of how this could even manifest, you can go online and look at some examples of that.
Thank you, Tanya. The next question is from Anonymous. Jim, this is directed to you. Will there be any theater courses that will discuss the issues of today? Will there be diversity theater courses?
I think that's a topic in quite a number of courses that we teach. Script analysis, playwriting. Playwriting will be, it's actually very well subscribed this year. Will be absolutely handling, they'll be creating their own plays, writing their own plays and treatments. So I think that will absolutely be a driving force behind the instructor. I know that she's quite involved in finding voices from the community. I think it's part of the theater history courses. It's throughout a lot of our coursework. Clearly, also in the selection of our plays, it's a big part of our play selection, our casting. So it runs through the theme that runs through a lot of things. So.
Thank you, Jim. The next question comes from Kathy Brookshire. For the face-to-face classes, how will you handle illnesses popping up?
Well, we're going to be following all the USC protocols, COVID-19 protocols. So students who are not feeling well will be, asked to get a checkup, I guess, and then of course they'll be testing for COVID-19, I think, throughout the year for students that need it. I think almost all of the classes, I'm pretty sure that almost every class that we have will have an ability to take the class online. So if a student gets sick, I think there's nothing that we've decided to make sure that there's nothing that's going to happen that's going to keep a student from progressing to graduation this year. So if you're in a beginning acting class and you get sick, you'll be able to complete that coursework. So we're promising everyone that. We're going to work hard to make sure that that happens.
Thank you, Jim. And I believe the university also has extensive answers to a lot of these questions on our COVID-19 page on the front page of sc.edu. The next question is from Anonymous, and it's asked, how can we be expected to improve if high intense practices are restricted? So this probably goes to both of you guys. Jim, you want to take it first?
Yeah, sure. This is a good point. I think that we are going to, the higher the impact, the higher the physical activity, the more bioaerosol emissions there are from the body, right? So we're following the protocol set by the CDC and the department. We're going to have a lot of distancing. I think that the movement class is going to have 10 feet distancing, right? But between all this, which is greater than the normal. And we need to do 12, we'll do 12. I will say that this is a piece of information that we don't have a lot of information on that's desperately needed in the academy. There is an ongoing, I guess just starting a project at the Colorado State University, where they're doing a study on the bioaerosol emissions in the performing arts. I think they're going to have their first major announcement, I think, late August. The study will be done in January, okay? And so we're going to have a lot of information. They're going to be doing all the musicians. They're going to be doing dance. They're going to be doing theater performances, and they have a facility that can measure all this, and so we're going to get some real data on what's happening. But I think that all of the social distancing that we're selecting is designed to be greater than it needs to be. We're hoping so.
Tanya, do you have insights?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll speak to that as a dancer and a person who is still dancing at 46 and someone who is still performing. And I think what you have to think about is there's a lot of internal work and self-work that you'll have to do on your own. Every single day, I have a physical practice. I still take dance classes. I have a bar in my house. I still move. I still exert myself. And so you'll have these courses that you'll be going to with your professors, either once or twice a week, but you have a physical responsibility to yourself to keep your instrument tuned and to keep your body in a space where you can physically move, but you can also intellectually engage with your body and say, oh, what do I need? What am I feeling that I am not able to get with this particular mode of teaching? How can I supplement that on my own? That may mean you got to go to Target and buy some weights. That may mean you have to get a TheraBand. Those are all things that can help you in your internal process of keeping your body in shape.
Thanks, Tanya. The
Yeah.
next question comes from Rachel Waller. A question for dance recitals and music rights. As a K through 12 school, We do not usually get the rights for popular music when we do live dance concerts. But if we end up doing virtual dance performances, we will need to get the permission to use and pay for the rights for certain music if it's presented in a recorded format, correct? For example, this past spring, we tried to put an a cappella group singing performance on YouTube and got it flagged and removed for copyright infringement. So if you both could engage in that, maybe Tanya, you want to start first?
Yeah, so there is an amazing webinar. There's actually 2 webinars on the Dance USA website about music rights. And there's a lawyer that speaks to all of the different navigations of getting rights for music while you're still choreographing, that I think are really helpful points. And that person is someone that you can contact to maybe assist you in going forward. The lawyer that's on that webinar going forward with how you're even thinking about curating your music experience with your dances. And it's a tricky topic at this particular point. It just is. And it's something that everybody's thinking about, you know, as we're going through these new modes of how to produce dance and to produce it in a virtual form. There's a lot of tenuous and a lot of unknown information.
Thanks, Tanya. Jim, do you have insight to add?
I think that's one of the best websites you can go to. Absolutely.
Great. Our next question comes from Anonymous. They say, do you feel as a performing arts teacher that it is crucial to start learning video editing? Jim, you want to take a stab at this first?
Yeah, well, I think our faculty are pretty well convinced that live theater is going to be changed forever to some degree with video performance in a way that maybe it hasn't been in the past. So yes, I think that the capturing of performances, particularly it's done really well like they did Hamilton, will definitely be a part of the future of our form. I think that also, though, live theater was not going to disappear in any way. So yes, I think that we're going to be using some editing people on at least 2 of our productions. I think there'll be some editing, at least the She Kills Monsters will have editing involved. So yes, I think that luckily we have a great relationship with the Media Arts Department and have always had help whenever we needed it. So.
Good. Tanya, would you like to add to?
Yeah, I will. I think if you're not interested in doing it yourself, you should have someone who knows how to do it and knows how to do it in terms of the gaze that you're actually interested in seeing in the video content, because that's really, really important. I think you should think about how your video content is designed. What is it saying? What are the messages that you actually want to send out with the video content? Because people can look at that stuff and they can go back, they can rewind it, they can look at it several times. So being really clear about what your intent is and how you want to visually capture that, and what's the gaze that you want your movement experience to reflect.
Thanks, guys. Then this next question, and forgive me if I completely mutilate your name, but it comes from Agata Zilak. And Agata asks, how can I get my students to stay engaged in the hybrid model? I noticed at the earlier stages of COVID-19 interruption that students felt removed from dance and therefore their engagement went down. They also didn't want to record themselves or share the videos. Tanya?
Yeah, because I don't know exactly what you did, I could just give a general answer for that. I think it's always helpful to see the person teaching the class be active and be engaging. And because we're movement practitioners, people want to see you move. People want to see you have an experience with what you're actually asking them to do. So I think that that's a really good way to transfer that information. It's kind of like activating. How do you activate the videos? How do you activate your movement experience to get somebody else to say, huh, that's something I'm interested in trying. If you're not excited about it, they're not going to be excited about it.
And Tanya, the next question is to you as well. It says, Tanya, what do you recommend doing in small dance studios in terms of social distancing?
So I think you need to have the least amount of people in a classroom as possible. This semester, I actually am teaching remotely. So I just didn't feel comfortable going back into the studio at this point. I'm an African-American woman, and disproportionately, COVID is attacking African-American people. So I have to say that I didn't feel comfortable at this juncture going back into the studio. But if you are going into the studio, I mean, it's going to be tricky. You need a lot of open air. I think you need as much space as possible. So that means just a few people in the class, because you also have to have the professor and the teacher, as well as possibly an accompanist in the space as well. So these are tricky times. They're experimental. It's not going to be perfect. You just have to know that this is not going to be perfect, and like surrender to that.
Thanks, Tanya. Jim, this next question is for you, and it comes from Amy Mew, and she asks, will the theater department have any shows in the lab theater?
Not in the fall, but we're planning a lab show, at least one lab show in the spring, I believe. And I don't think that's determined, the title's determined yet. So yes, no lab show in the fall.
Okay. And you guys, for all of you, I'm going to try to ask as many of these questions as possible. We're probably going to go over just a little, and that's fine. But I'm going to ask the questions and ask you guys to speed answer them, okay?
Okay.
Okay. The next question comes from Michelle May, and she asks, other than Zoom, are there any virtual learning platforms that you recommend to use for dance, either for technique class or for creative composition activities? Tanya, we'll start with you, and then Jim, if you can add some insight right after.
Yeah, I actually don't know of any other than Zoom at the moment.
Jim?
Well, we had a movement teacher who's had a lot of success with Marco Polo, which is sort of like a Snapchat with video. I don't know very much about it, but he raves about how it's interactive, where you can send a little clip of a movement piece, and then you can have a video right back from someone. So I don't know a lot about that app, but apparently it's been great for his class.
Yeah, I've used Marco Polo, but I've never thought of it in that content. That's a great option.
Right.
Okay, Maria Macaroni's got another question, and she asks, what advice do you have for students and faculty on how to stay open-minded when transitioning into the new modes of creation? Jim, we'll start with you and then go to Tanya.
I think you have to accept, like Frank Lloyd Wright, that this is the challenge of our time, right? This is what we're here to do, and we have to serve our students. We have to provide our students with the essential experiences and the competencies that we've promised them to do. So I think it's a scary time. I know that it's stressful. I'm stressed about it, you know, but I think that, again, I think the messages that I've heard Tanya say a lot, and which I hear a lot from our faculty too, is that there are opportunities here. This could be a new paradigm for our fields, a new way of impacting people. So I think there's a positive to it. So I think you're just gonna have to look to that side. Now, you know, hopefully there'll be a vaccine soon, but still, even after that, there's going to be lots of changes to our industry. Right.
Tanya, do you have some insight?
Yeah, I think if you're not open and you're not experimenting, it's really hard to get people you're teaching to think about being open and experimental. And call on those people that you know who have previously, before COVID-19, done experimental work. Think about, you know, who do you have connections with? What are those people doing? Have conversations. This is a time where we can all sit on a Zoom call and just talk about ideas. And you can talk with people who are not just in the United States, but you can think globally. You can have conversations globally with people. I mean, that's what I've been doing. So it's helped me.
You guys, the next is not a question, but a statement, and it's from Julie Friedel, and she wants to say, just a note to thank Tanya for her comments on the new ideas and opportunities for how to engage audiences in the future. I think the big stage is great, and I'm sure there will always be a place for it, but young people in particular want to know new ways to experience art and interact with performers and the audience. This is a great chance to think about sharing art in totally new ways. Very excited for the possibilities. And then I'm going to springboard to the next question, which comes to you, Tanya, and it's from Meredith Price, and she says, how will the rehearsal process for the environmental performances shift?
Yeah, so the rehearsals will be in people's makeshift spaces. And then also some in the studios. I think Andre is actually going to go into the studio and do some face-to-face choreography with his students. But what I'm doing is I'm pairing with a teacher who's in Roanoke, Virginia, who is a middle school teacher. And her students are going to build some gestures. They're going to send them to us, and we are going to take those gestures and completely magnify them into movement. So we're having this environmental dialogue in a whole nother state through embodiment that I think is really interesting. And it's also like intergenerational. These are middle school people who are building movement for college students to take it, and they're going to explore it and amplify it. And then I'm going to create some movement, and we're going to meld that stuff together. And we're going to use different modalities of speed and pauses and dynamic pauses, and how all of those movement practices will actually morph to become this thing that gets projected onto screens. Will be really interesting to me, because people are going to have to, as I said in the beginning, they're going to have to start with themselves and actually create movement and then combine that with already choreographed content. So it's just like, it's super exciting. I can't wait actually until the fall comes, because we'll be doing something we haven't done before.
Okay, the next question comes from Mary Beth Berry, and she asks, is there any concern for personal liability for bringing students together, such as creating scenes, blocking that bridges, that social distancing, or if students do not abide by guidelines and they get sick and or expose others? Jim, you want to start?
I think we're going to follow all of the USC protocols like in the other class. And I think we're going to be working for our students' safety at every moment. So we're going to be incredibly cautious. So.
And Tanya?
Yeah, I will just echo that.
Yeah.
And the next question, Jim, comes to you from Julie Friedel, and she says, will there be a ticket? Well, I think we may have already answered, but we may want to elaborate. Will there be ticket charges for the theater productions? Will there be different price points for virtual versus live in-person performances? And another person, anonymous, asked also, how do you plan to support the programs financially without ticket sales?
Yeah, you know, we have an income requirement in the department. So we've always made income. We always have generated income. And it's part of how we're sending students to conferences and giving out scholarships and all the things that we do with the money. So I think this year we're going to probably, I can't speak for the department really as a whole. I think we're thinking we're going to set a little bit that aside, hopefully. I know that I just logged into a performance of She-Hill's Monsters. It was last night, I saw it. And I got a ticket, and they charged $0, but then they asked for a donation to the department. So I gave a donation. So I think that, to my mind, I think that's a great way to move forward. At least in the near term, but we, you know, the fall maybe we might have something more structured, but that's not determined yet. So.
Okay, the next question comes from Sabrina McClure, and Sabrina says, if the season changes have been shared in detail with students, how has the response to the proposed experiences differed or been similar from current students versus incoming students? Have the current students been in the practice of investigating non-traditional performances in their studies that is making these changes more accessible and possible to them. Jim, you want to start and then hand over to Tanya?
So we had student representation on the script selection committee, right? And and as a matter of fact, I think, well, several of the shows were absolutely highlighted. She Kills Monsters is on the docket because of student input. So yes, I think we have had some. I don't know if the if since in the classes if there's been any more feedback from students, but the feedback that I got when we announced when we talked about these plays was real positive. So I think that I think that we've had to have broad support for the season.
Tanya?
Yeah, so this is, I think, the first launch where we're actually telling the student population what our Dance 177 performance will look like. In terms of students being exposed to these experiential ways of thinking about performances, if you have taken a class from me, or if you have taken a class from my husband, Thaddeus Davis, you have been exposed. And based off of that feedback that we get from students, this is an entry point into performance that they're asking for, that they want to be interdisciplinary, that transdisciplinary art making is something that they do in their daily lives, but they just don't know how to connect that into an actual practice with their dance education. And so it's just like, it's right there waiting to be grabbed. And I feel like this is the time to grab it because this is what students are asking for. And I think if you start to build in your curriculum more entry points into how that's accessible, because people have to see it's accessible. People have to know that it exists and it's possible before, they'll grab onto it.
This question is for both of you guys, and it comes from Rita Chenoweth, and she asks, how are faculty feeling about teaching face-to-face or in a hybrid mode? Tanya, you want to lead off and then we'll hand to Jim?
Yeah, I said I'm excited about, teaching remotely and thinking of new connective ways to connect with my students via this new way of being with each other. Zoom has some embodiment practices, I think, that we can expound upon because we just didn't have to. We were face to face with each other. And so there's so many ways I think that we can build community and build trust with each other through this medium that has a lot of untrust in it.
Jim?
Well, I first want to say that I give an enormous amount of credit to the university for deciding that they were going to support faculty who were not comfortable coming back to campus. That's not necessarily the case across the country. So, and it's the right thing to do. And that's been a good thing for our department. And we had a faculty member who was hesitant to come back and is going to teach online. And one of the classes ended up being, she's going to teach playwriting. And this is a class that we hadn't taught in quite a while, and it filled up right away, right? So she's super pleased. And I think that there are, I think most of our faculty want to be back in the classroom, but there have been a lot of surprises, and I think there have been a lot of jewel things that happened. I know that, for instance, the makeup class that I would have thought could only happen in person to person is in a hybrid, has been taught online. And apparently they're having a lot of, for instance, the faculty member is really pleased because she's having a lot of great success with students doing projects on themselves because they don't have to do it in the hour and 15 minutes of the class. So they'll start their project for the day hours earlier. So, I mean, there's some successes. I think there's some high points. I think they all would I think most of the faculty would like to teach face-to-face, but I think that we're in a good place. And the hybrid model is going to be here for many, many, many years. So.
Because I think we're going to have to stop here. We have a number of questions that we didn't get to, and we will share those questions with both Tanya and Jim. and get answers to you, and maybe we'll post them all where everyone can see the questions and the answers. Tanya and Jim, thank you very much. We're very lucky to have you guys at USC, and thank you for sharing your expertise and your insights on this webinar. And to each one of our participants, thank you very much for being with us. And I hope that you join us with our upcoming webinars. Please check again our website, and you can see what we have coming in the future. Thank you, and all have a wonderful day.